I endured my daughter-in-law's humiliations for years. But when I won the lottery, she begged for forgiveness. There are moments in life where the floor disappears beneath your feet, where everything you built turns to dust, where you discover that family can be crueler than any enemy. I am Arthur Miller, 68 years old, a successful businessman turned beggar under my own son's roof. I learned that lesson in the most painful way possible, but I also learned something more important. That dignity cannot be bought with money, but it cannot be begged for either. And sometimes, the sweetest revenge is simply disappearing. Let me take you back to the beginning. You need to understand who I was before everything collapsed. You need to know the full story to understand why I did what I did. My name is Arthur Miller. I was born in a blue-collar neighborhood in Detroit, in a house where water was heated on the stove and every penny was counted just to make ends meet. My father was a mechanic. He worked 14 hours a day with hands always black from grease. My mother sewed school uniforms for families in the neighborhood. We were poor, but we had something money cannot buy. Principles, respect, dignity, values that I thought I had passed on to my children. How wrong I was. At 18, I started working in an auto parts factory, night shifts that left my eyes red and my body aching. But I studied business administration at a state college during the day, sleeping barely 4 hours. There was no time for parties or distractions. There was only one goal: to get ahead, to build something, to be someone. At 25, I married Teresa. I met her at the bus stop on the way to work. She was a simple woman, a secretary in a small office with a smile that lit up even the grayest days. We got married with the bare minimum. The wedding was in a modest church in the neighborhood. Teresa's dress was made by her mother. Our honeymoon was a weekend at a nearby lake. But we were happy. We had shared dreams. We were hungry for the future. I worked as an operations manager at various companies for 10 years. I learned every aspect of the manufacturing business. I observed. I analyzed. I took mental notes of everything. At 35, with a loan I secured after visiting 6 different banks and the savings from a decade of sacrifice, I opened my own company, Miller Auto Parts, a small workshop on the outskirts of Detroit. 5 employees, used machinery, a wooden desk I had bought at an auction, and a determination that knew no limits. The first few years were brutal. There were months when I had to choose between paying myself a salary or paying the rent for the workshop. I always chose the rent. Teresa worked with me, handling the accounting, dealing with suppliers, organizing deliveries. We ate canned soup and bread most days, but we never complained. We knew we were building something, and little by little, the business grew. I got a contract with a large automotive assembler, then another. I invested every dollar of profit into better machinery, into more employees, into expanding the workshop. At 40, Miller Auto Parts was already a mid-sized company with 3 production plants and contracts with the main automakers in the country. At 50, we were one of the most respected auto parts companies, with over 200 employees and exports overseas. The money came. We bought a large house in one of the best suburbs. We changed our old car for a new one every 2 years. We traveled to Europe, to the Caribbean. But I never forgot where I came from. I still got up at 5 in the morning. I still visited the plants personally. I still knew the name of every employee and asked about their families. Teresa and I had 2 children. First came Robert, my eldest son. From a young age, he was a difficult child, spoiled, used to everything coming easy to him. I gave him everything I never had, the best private schools, vacations on the beach, designer clothes. Maybe that was my mistake. Maybe by giving him everything without him having to earn it, I created a man who valued nothing. Then Anna was born, my youngest daughter. She was the opposite of Robert, studious, responsible, grateful. She became an architect, married a good man, moved to Denver, and built her own life. We spoke every week. She visited when she could, she was the daughter any father would dream of having. Robert studied business administration, more out of obligation than interest. I gave him a position in the company when he finished college, sales manager, an important position with a generous salary, but he never showed true commitment. He arrived late. He left early. He spent more time on his phone than working. When I confronted him, he looked at me with resentment, as if I were asking him for something unfair. At 30, Robert married Monica. He met her at a trendy club downtown. She came from a middle-class family, but always acted as if she were high society. Thin, dyed blonde hair, long nails, always perfect, tight and expensive clothes. From the beginning, I noticed something in her eyes, a coldness, a poorly disguised greed. But I kept quiet. She was the woman my son had chosen. She deserved a chance. The wedding was extravagant. I paid for everything. A luxury venue, more than 300 guests, a live band, expensive food, decoration that looked like it was from a magazine. Monica invited people she didn't even know well just to show off. Throughout the ceremony, I noticed how she looked at me, not with affection, not with gratitude, but calculating, measuring how much I was worth to her. After the wedding, I bought them a house, a beautiful property in an exclusive gated community. I also gave Robert a significant raise at the company and a new car as a wedding gift. I thought with all that they would settle down, mature, form a good family. But Monica was never satisfied. She always wanted more. A bigger house, a newer car, more exotic trips, more expensive clothes. And Robert, weak as he was, gave her everything she asked for. They spent more than they earned. I helped them constantly, paying off credit card debts, covering expenses they couldn't handle. Teresa warned me. Arthur, you are spoiling them. Robert will never grow up if you keep solving all his problems. But I didn't listen. He was my son. What father doesn't want to help his son? Years passed. The company kept growing. I was 65. I was starting to think about retirement, about traveling more with Teresa, about enjoying the fruit of so much work. I had saved well. We had solid investments, properties. The company was worth millions. We were safe, or so I thought. Then Gavin Stevens came into my life, a businessman from New York. Expensive suit, refined manners, convincing words. He sought me out with a proposal that sounded incredible, expanding Miller Auto Parts to South America. He had the contacts, the permits, the connections with automakers in Brazil, Argentina, Chile. I would put up the capital and the experience. We would split the profits 50-50. He presented documents that looked legitimate, contracts with signatures and seals, detailed market studies, financial projections that promised to double my profits in 2 years. I did my research, or at least I thought I did. Everything seemed to be in order. I invested heavily, very heavily. I pulled money from investments. I mortgaged properties. I used the company reserves. In total, I put almost 80% of my net worth into the South American expansion project. Teresa was nervous. It is too much risk, Arthur. What if something goes wrong? But I was sure. I had built an empire from scratch. I knew how to recognize a good opportunity. For 6 months, everything seemed to be going well. Gavin sent progress reports, photos of plants under construction, documents of approved permits. I occasionally visited the operations. Everything looked real, legitimate, and then, from one day to the next, Gavin Stevens disappeared. The phones stopped answering. Emails bounced back. I went personally to investigate. The plants under construction did not exist. The land we had supposedly bought was owned by other people. The permits were forgeries. The contracts with the automakers were fiction. It was all an elaborate scam, and I had fallen for it like an idiot. I lost everything. The investments evaporated. The mortgage properties were seized by the banks. The company, weakened by the loss of capital, started having cash flow problems. Suppliers stopped giving credit. Employees started worrying about their paychecks. I tried to save what I could, but it was like trying to plug a hole in a dam with bare hands. In 6 months, Miller Auto Parts went bankrupt. I had to declare bankruptcy. The creditors took everything. The machinery, the inventory, the plants, the offices. 200 employees lost their jobs. Families that depended on me were left without support. The guilt crushed me like a concrete slab. We also lost the house. The bank foreclosed on the unpaid mortgage. Teresa and I, after 30 years of marriage and 40 years of hard work, were literally left on the street. At our age, 68 and 65 respectively. No house, no company, no savings, no nothing. I called Anna, my daughter. She cried when she heard what had happened. Dad, you can come to Denver. There is space in our house. It is not big, but... I interrupted her. Her house was small. She had 2 young children. Her husband earned well, but he wasn't rich. I couldn't burden them with us. Then I called Robert, my son, the heir I had imagined for the company, the man to whom I had given everything. I explained the situation to him. I expected shock, maybe sadness, even anger. But what I heard in his voice was something else, something I couldn't identify immediately. "Sure, Dad," he said after a long silence. "You can stay with us. It is the least I can do." I should have heard the tone. I should have noticed the lack of warmth. But I was desperate. I had no options. Teresa and I arrived at Robert and Monica's house with 2 suitcases. That was all we had left of a lifetime. 2 suitcases with clothes and some personal items. The man who had owned 3 production plants and a 5,000 square foot house now fit into 2 suitcases. Monica opened the door for us. She didn't even smile. She looked us up and down as if we were door-to-door salesmen. "Come in," she said coldly. "Robert is at work." She took us to the smallest room in the house. A double bed barely fit. There was no closet, just a rack in the corner. The window faced the neighbor's wall. The bathroom was down the hall, shared with everyone. "It is the only thing available," Monica said without an ounce of empathy. "I hope you understand that this situation is temporary. We cannot support you indefinitely." Teresa squeezed my hand. I saw tears in her eyes that she was trying to hold back. My wife, who had worked by my side for 40 years, who had sacrificed so much, was now treated like an unwanted burden. "Thank you, Monica," I said, swallowing my pride. "It is temporary. As soon as I get a job." She let out a dry laugh. "Job. Mr. Miller is 68 years old. Who is going to hire a broke old man?" The words hit me like slaps. But she was right. I had tried looking for work for the last few weeks. No one wanted to hire a man my age, especially one whose company had just gone bankrupt in a scam scandal. My reputation was destroyed. That first night in my son's house was the longest of my life. Teresa cried silently beside me in that narrow bed. I stared at the cracked ceiling, listening to Robert and Monica's laughter from the living room. They sounded happy, carefree, as if they didn't have two broken old people sleeping in the back room. The next day, the true hell began. Monica had a routine. She got up late, around 10 in the morning. She ate breakfast watching TV, then went to the gym or to see her friends. She returned in the afternoon and locked herself in her room. Robert arrived from work around 7. They ate dinner together in the dining room. Teresa and I ate afterward, with the leftovers. It wasn't something Monica said explicitly. She simply served 2 plates. She set out food for 2, and when they finished, they left us what remained, as if we were pets waiting for crumbs. The first time Teresa tried to cook for everyone as a gesture of gratitude. Monica walked into the kitchen with a furious face. "What are you doing?" she asked in a sharp tone. "I am preparing dinner for everyone," Teresa replied kindly. "I thought I could help with—" "This is my kitchen," Monica interrupted her. "I don't need an old woman putting her hands on my things. It is enough having you here without you also ruining my space." Teresa left the kitchen with a red face. Not from shame, from humiliation. My wife, who had raised 2 children, who had managed a large house for decades, was now treated like an intruder in her daughter-in-law's kitchen. But that was just the beginning. Monica started making comments. Small, poisonous, said with a smile, but designed to hurt. "Oh, mother-in-law, do you still wear that kind of clothes? It is very out of style." "Sure, I understand you don't have money to buy new things anymore. Mr. Miller, could you not leave your shoes there? This house has cleaning standards. It is not like— well, never mind. What a shame you lost everything. Right, Robert tells me you were rich. It must be hard getting used to living like this. Like poor people." Every comment was a small stab, and Robert, my son, never said anything. When Monica spoke like that, he just smiled uncomfortably and changed the subject. Or worse, sometimes he laughed, as if the humiliations of his parents were entertaining. One night, Teresa offered to wash the dishes after dinner. Monica let her. But when Teresa finished, Monica inspected every plate as if she were a health inspector. "Oh, mother-in-law, this plate still has grease, and this glass has spots. Don't you know how to wash dishes?" "Well, I suppose when you had money, other people did these things for you." Teresa washed everything again. Her hands were trembling. She was 75 years old, arthritis in her hands. And there she was, washing dishes for the 3rd time because her daughter-in-law enjoyed humiliating her. I watched everything from the room. I clenched my fists until my nails dug into my palms. But what could I do? We had no money. We had no options. We were prisoners of my own son's cruel charity. Weeks passed. Monica became bolder with her humiliations. She didn't bother to hide it anymore. Useless old woman. She told Teresa one day when my wife accidentally spilled a little coffee on the table. You aren't even good for drinking coffee without making a mess. At your age, you should be in a nursing home, not getting in the way in other people's houses. Robert was there, sitting on the sofa. He heard everything and laughed. A nervous laugh, but a laugh nonetheless. Something broke inside me that day. It wasn't a dramatic break. It was subtle, like a small crack forming in a wall that you know will eventually bring down the whole structure. At night, Teresa and I lay in that small bed and listened to Robert and Monica laughing on the other side of the wall. Sometimes we heard snippets of conversations. How much longer are they going to stay? Monica asked. I don't know, Robert replied. They have nowhere to go. It is unbearable, Robert. Your mother makes me nervous with her martyr face, and your father, walking around the house like a ghost. It depresses me seeing them. I know, honey, but what do you want me to do? They are my parents. Well, find them a place. A cheap nursing home. Something. But they can't stay here forever. This isn't a hotel for failed old people. Failed. That word echoed in my head for hours. I, who had built a company from scratch, who had given employment to 200 families, who had raised my son in a big house and paid for the best education. Now I was a failure in my daughter-in-law's mouth, and my son didn't contradict her. Teresa cried every night, silently, so Robert and Monica wouldn't hear her, but I felt her shaking beside me. Once she whispered to me, Arthur, did we do something wrong? Do we deserve this? I didn't know how to answer, because I was asking myself the same question. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. I tried looking for work, but it was useless. My age, my ruined reputation, the lack of current references. No one called me back. Teresa tried to help around the house, but every effort was met with contempt. One afternoon, Monica organized a gathering with her friends in the living room. Teresa was in the room. I had gone out for a walk, trying to escape the toxic atmosphere of that house, even for an hour. When I returned, I heard voices from the living room. Are those your in-laws? Asked one of Monica's friends. Yes, Monica replied with a dramatic sigh. A tragedy. They were rich, you know. But the old man let himself get scammed like an idiot. He lost everything. Now they live with us. It is a huge burden. Oh, poor you. It must be horrible having to support them. You can't even imagine. The old woman always walks around with a sad face, as if it were my fault they are poor. And him, the formerly proud Mr. Miller, now isn't even good for paying for his own food. It is pathetic, honestly. The laughter that followed went through me like knives. I stood in the hallway, invisible to them, listening to how my daughter-in-law turned my pain into entertainment for her friends. I went into the room. Teresa was sitting on the bed, looking out the window. She looked so small, so fragile. This woman who had been my rock for 40 years now seemed made of glass, about to break. I sat beside her. I took her hand. Teresa, I said softly, we are going to get out of this, I promise you. I don't know how, but we are going to regain our dignity. She looked at me with tired eyes. Arthur, we are 68 years old. There's no way out. This is our end. Living on the cruel charity of a son who doesn't love us and a daughter-in-law who despises us. No, I said with a firmness I didn't feel. This is not our end. It cannot be. But deep down, I didn't know if I believed it either. That night, while everyone slept, I went out to the small backyard of the house. The sky was clear. The stars shone with a cruel indifference. I remembered when I had my own house, the big yard where Teresa grew roses, the family dinners where Robert was still a boy who hugged me and said, I love you, Dad. When had everything broken? At what moment had money become the only thing that mattered? At what moment had my son decided that his father was only worth what he could give him. I pulled an old crumpled piece of paper from my pocket. It was a lottery ticket I had bought months ago before everything collapsed. I had kept it out of habit, without thinking to check it. The drawing had passed weeks ago. I probably hadn't won anything. But in that moment of absolute despair, I thought, why not check? I took out my phone. I looked up the winning numbers from that date and started comparing. First number matched, second number matched, third number matched. My heart started racing. Fourth number matched, fifth number matched, sixth number matched. I froze. I looked at the ticket. I looked at the phone screen. I checked again. It couldn't be. It was impossible. But there it was, all 6 numbers. Perfect match. I had won the jackpot. I stood in that backyard for I don't know how long. The ticket trembled in my hands. The numbers on my phone screen shone like stars mocking me. I checked one more time, then another and another. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a hallucination of a desperate old man. It was real. I had won $10 million. $10 million. The exact amount appeared when I searched for the drawing details. A single winner. Me. The failed old man sleeping in the smallest room of his son's house. The man his daughter-in-law called useless and pathetic. That man had just become a millionaire again. My first instinct was to scream, to run and wake Teresa, to tell her the news, but something stopped me. A cold and calculating voice in my head that I didn't immediately recognize as mine. A voice that said, wait, think. Do not waste this opportunity. I put the ticket in the deepest pocket of my pants. I turned off the phone. I took a deep breath, and I made a decision that would change everything. I wasn't going to say anything. To anyone. Not even to Teresa. Not yet. I went back to the room in silence. Teresa slept restlessly, tossing and turning in that uncomfortable bed. I lay down beside her, but I couldn't sleep. My mind was working at 1,000 miles per hour, planning, calculating, imagining. Monica wanted us to feel small. She wanted to humiliate us. She enjoyed every moment of our suffering. Robert, my own son, allowed it all. Sometimes he seemed to enjoy it too. They had turned our stay in their house into a cruel spectacle of power. Well then, if they wanted to play, we would play. But this time I would hold all the cards. The next morning I got up early, as always. Monica was still sleeping. Robert had already gone to work. Teresa was making coffee silently in the kitchen, moving like a ghost so as not to disturb anyone. Good morning, I told her, kissing her on the cheek. She looked at me surprised. I hadn't kissed her like that in weeks. She hadn't seen hope in my eyes in weeks. Are you okay, Arthur? Yes, I replied with a small smile. I'm going out for a while today. I have some errands to run. Errands? What kind of errands? Just some pending paperwork. I will be back in the afternoon. Teresa nodded, confused but without asking more questions. I left the house feeling different. For the first time in months, I walked with my back straight, with purpose. I took a bus to downtown Detroit. The lottery ticket was tucked in my wallet, inside a plastic bag to protect it. Every time I touched my pocket to make sure it was still there, I felt a rush of adrenaline. I arrived at the lottery commission offices at 9 in the morning. The building was imposing. I walked in with a firm step. A young receptionist attended me. Good morning. How can I help you? I am here to claim a prize, I said, taking out the ticket. She checked it with a routine look that quickly transformed into shock. Sir, this is... Wait a moment, please. She disappeared into an inner office. She returned with an older man in a gray suit, the manager of major prizes. He checked the ticket, carefully comparing it with documents on his computer. He looked at me with a mixture of respect and curiosity. Mr. Miller, are you aware of the amount you have won $10 million? I replied calmly. Exactly. This is a jackpot. We will need to verify some data. Do the validation process. It may take... a few days, but if everything is in order and your ticket appears legitimate, the money will be yours. How many days? I asked. Between 3 and 5 business days. We have to do security checks, confirm the ticket hasn't been reported stolen or lost, process the corresponding taxes. It is standard procedure. I nodded. I understand. Is there any way to keep this confidential? I don't want publicity. The manager smiled with understanding. Many winners prefer anonymity. We can arrange that. Sign these confidentiality documents here. Your name will not appear in any public release. I spent the next 3 hours filling out forms, providing identification, answering questions. The whole time. A part of me couldn't believe this was real, that after months of humiliation and hopelessness, the universe was giving me a second chance. Finally, the manager shook my hand. Mr. Miller, we will call you in 4 days. You can come to collect your prize then? I recommend you think well about what you will do with the money. Consider speaking with a financial advisor. Many people who win big prizes end up losing everything due to bad decisions. Don't worry, I told him. I already lost a fortune once. I won't make the same mistakes again. I left the lottery offices feeling like I was floating. 4 days. In 4 days I would have the money, but those 4 days would be the hardest of my life. I would have to keep acting like the defeated old man. I would have to endure Monica's humiliations. I would have to see my son looking at us with poorly disguised pity. But this time it would be different, because I knew something they didn't know. I had a secret that would change everything. I returned to Robert's house near noon. Monica was in the living room watching TV, eating chocolates from an expensive box. She didn't even look at me when I entered. Teresa was in our room sewing a button on one of my old shirts. How did it go? She asked me. Fine, I replied. I wanted to tell her. I wanted to hug her and tell her everything was going to be okay. That in 4 days we would be free. But I held back, not out of mistrust towards Teresa, but because I knew she couldn't act. She was too transparent. Monica would notice immediately if something changed in her behavior. That afternoon, Monica was in a particularly bad mood. Her credit card had been declined at a store, and she was furious with Robert for not giving her enough money. She was looking for someone to take it out on. Teresa was in the kitchen when Monica entered like a tornado. "What are you doing here?" she asked aggressively. "I'm just getting a glass of water," Teresa replied with a soft voice. "You are always in my way. You know what I am tired. I want you and your useless husband to get out of my house. We have been supporting you for almost 3 months. I can't take it anymore." I entered the kitchen, hearing the commotion. "Monica, please, don't talk to me," she screamed at me. "You had a company. You had money, and you lost it all for being stupid, for being too trusting, and now you expect us to support you, as if we were a charity nursing home." Teresa started to cry. I clenched my fists. 4 days. I just had to hold on for 4 more days. "Find another place to stay," Monica continued. I already spoke to Robert. "Do you agree we are giving you 2 weeks to leave? If in 2 weeks you are still here, I will call the police and have you removed as intruders." "Monica, we are your in-laws," Teresa started. "I don't care. This is my house and I don't want you here anymore. Period." Monica left the kitchen, leaving a heavy silence. Teresa collapsed in a chair, sobbing. I knelt beside her, hugging her. "Teresa," I whispered in her ear, "trust me. Just a little longer. I promise you everything is going to change." She looked at me with red eyes. "How, Arthur? How is it going to change?" I couldn't answer. I just hugged her tighter. That night, Robert arrived from work. He had dinner with Monica in the dining room. We ate afterward, as always, the cold leftovers. When I finished, I approached Robert. I needed to confirm if he really agreed with kicking us out. "Son," I said softly, "Monica says you want us to leave." Robert didn't even look me in the eye. "Dad, you have been here a long time. Monica is stressed. We need our space." "Our space?" "Robert, we are your parents. I know. but I can't support you forever. You have to resolve your situation. Find a small apartment, something you can pay for with, I don't know, with a pension or something. We don't have a pension. We don't have anything. Well, then look for government help. Senior citizen programs. What do I know, but you can't stay here anymore? He looked at me finally, and in his eyes I didn't see guilt. I didn't see sadness. I saw annoyance. As if we were a problem he wanted to solve and forget. It is okay, I said with a calm that surprised even me. We will leave in 2 weeks. Robert felt relieved. Thanks for understanding, Dad. I went back to the room. Teresa was lying down staring at the ceiling. What did he say, that we have to leave in 2 weeks? She closed her eyes. New tears rolled down her cheeks. We have nowhere to go, Arthur. We literally have nothing. Not yet, I said, in a voice so low she barely heard me. But soon, the next 3 days were torturous. Monica, knowing we would be leaving soon, became even crueler, as if she wanted to squeeze out the last drop of humiliation before we left. Useless old woman. Pick up your plate. Who do you think you are that you have servants? Mr. Miller, your shoes smell horrible. Can't you at least maintain basic hygiene? 2 more weeks. Count the days. I am already counting. Robert watched everything without saying anything. Sometimes he smiled uncomfortably. Once, when Monica called Teresa a wrinkled nuisance, he let out a giggle before realizing it and coughing to cover it up. Every insult, every humiliation, I stored in my memory, not with pain, but with the cold determination of someone who knows he will soon have his moment. Finally. The 4th day arrived. I got up at 5 in the morning. Teresa was still sleeping. I left a note on the pillow, left early, back in the afternoon. Don't worry. I took a taxi straight to the lottery offices. I arrived before they opened. I waited at the entrance like a child waiting for a toy store to open. At 9 o'clock sharp, the doors opened. The same manager from 4 days ago received me with a professional smile. Mr. Miller, punctual as a clock. Everything is in order. Your prize has been verified. It passed all security validations. The money is ready to be transferred. He took me to a private office. There he explained the options. I could receive the money in a lump sum minus taxes or in annual payments over 20 years. I chose the total sum. I wasn't going to wait 20 years. I needed the money now. After taxes, I had about $6.5 million left. It wasn't the original 10, but it was more than enough. Much more than enough. How do you wish to receive the money? The manager asked. Wire transfer to a new account, I replied. I don't want it going to any of my old accounts. The manager nodded. He helped me open a new account at a different bank than the one I had used all my life. An account no one knew about. That wasn't associated with my name in any public record that Robert or Monica could search. At 2 in the afternoon, my phone vibrated. A message from the bank. Deposit received. $500,000 USD. I stared at the numbers on the screen. $6.5 million. I had money again. But this time it would be different. This time I wouldn't trust anyone. This time I would protect what was mine. I left the bank and went directly to a law firm the lottery manager had recommended. Lawyers specializing in asset protection. I explained my situation, that I had won a big prize, that I wanted to protect the money from any future claim, that I had toxic family from whom I wanted to protect myself legally. The lead lawyer, Mr. Ernest Vance, was a serious man in his 50s with experience in complex cases. Mr. Miller, I can help you. We are going to create an irrevocable trust. The money will be protected. No one will be able to claim it, not even in case of lawsuits. How long does it take? With the urgency of your case, we can have it ready in a week. I don't have a week. I need it ready in 3 days. Mr. Vance looked at me with curiosity. That is very rushed. But if you pay the rush fee, I can have the team working day and night. It will be ready. Do it, I said without hesitation, and I need something else. I need a furnished apartment, something modest but dignified, and 2 plane tickets to anywhere outside the country, for the day after tomorrow. Mr. Vance smiled slightly. He had seen these types of cases before, people escaping toxic situations. I know someone in real estate who can help with the apartment, and the tickets I can arrange myself. Do you have a preference for destination? I thought for a moment. Far. I wanted to be far away, where Robert and Monica would never find us if they decided to look. Spain, I said finally. Madrid. Perfect. I will have it all ready for tomorrow night. I left the firm feeling like a military strategist. Every piece was moving into place. The money was protected. The escape was planned. Only the farewell was missing. That night, I returned to Robert's house. Monica was in the living room with a friend, drinking wine and laughing loudly. She didn't even notice when I walked in. Teresa was in the room, packing our few belongings into the 2 suitcases. "Where did you go?" she asked worriedly. "You were gone all day." "Teresa," I said, closing the room door, "I need you to trust me. Tomorrow night, everything will change. But until then, don't ask anything. Can you do that for me?" She looked at me confused. "Arthur, you're scaring me. Don't be afraid. For the first time in months, you don't have to be afraid. Just trust me one more day." Teresa nodded slowly. She knew me well enough to know that when I spoke like that, I meant it. The next day, I acted completely normal. I ate breakfast in silence. Monica made her usual poisonous comments. Robert ignored me before leaving for work. Everything was exactly as it had been for the last 3 months. But inside, I was counting the hours. At 3 in the afternoon, I received a text from Mr. Vance. All ready. Trust signed. Apartment rented. Tickets bought. Come pick up documents. I left the house saying I was going to look for work. Monica didn't even look up from her phone. I went to the firm. Mr. Vance handed me a thick envelope with all the documents. The irrevocable trust. The lease for the apartment in Madrid. Rented for 6 months. Fully paid. The plane tickets for tomorrow at 11 in the morning and new debit cards for the protected account. "Mr. Miller," he told me, shaking my hand, "everything is in order. The money is completely protected. No one can touch it except you and your wife, whom I added as a beneficiary. I wish you luck in your new life." "Thank you, Mr. Vance. You don't know how much this means to me." "I know," he replied with a sad smile. "I have seen many cases like yours, families that destroy themselves over money. I am glad to be able to help you regain your dignity." I returned to the house for the last time. Teresa was in the room. I took her hands and finally told her everything. Her reaction was exactly what I expected. Shock, disbelief, tears, and finally a liberating laugh I hadn't heard in months. "Is it real, Arthur? Did we really win? It is real, honey. And tomorrow we are leaving here. Forever." She hugged me so tight, she almost cut off my breath. "Thank you, God," she whispered. "Thank you." That night we ate the cold leftovers for the last time. Monica made a particularly cruel comment about Teresa's old clothes. Robert laughed, and I looked at both of them with absolute calm, knowing it was the last time I would have to endure this. After dinner, when everyone was sleeping, I prepared the note. I had written and rewritten it mentally for days. It had to be perfect, neither too explanatory nor too vague, with the exact amount of poison to hurt. I left it on the dining table. Next to it, I put the keys to the room where we had slept for 3 months of hell, and beside that, a single penny, the perfect symbol of what my family had reduced me to in their eyes. The note read, "Thank you for reminding me what dignity is worth. Thank you for teaching me that blood does not guarantee love. Thank you for showing me who you really are. I am leaving with Teresa to start over. Do not look for us. You will not find us. And know this, I had the opportunity to share my new fortune with you. But I prefer giving it to grateful strangers than to cruel family. The penny I left is more than you deserve. Arthur." At 6 in the morning, Teresa and I left that house with our 2 suitcases. A taxi was waiting outside. Monica and Robert were still sleeping. There were no goodbyes. There was no last look, just silence and freedom. In the taxi, on the way to the airport, Teresa squeezed my hand. "Do you think they will read the note?" "They will read it," I replied, "and when they read it, they will know exactly what they lost." Detroit International Airport was starting to fill up with morning travelers. Teresa and I walked through the bright corridors with our 2 suitcases. It was strange. 3 months ago, those same suitcases represented all we had left of a lifetime. Now they represented something different, the freedom to start over, without carrying the weight of the past. We checked our luggage. The airline employee smiled at us with professional kindness. "Pleasure trip?" she asked as she processed our tickets. "Something like that," I replied. "A new beginning." Teresa squeezed my hand. Her eyes were bright, not with sad tears, but with excitement. For the first time in months, I saw her smile genuinely, a smile that reached her eyes. We went through security. We bought coffee at one of the airport shops. We sat in the waiting area watching planes take off through the window. Everything felt surreal, as if we were living someone else's dream. "Arthur," Teresa said softly, "did it really happen? Or am I going to wake up in that horrible room and discover it was all a fantasy?" "It happened," I assured her. "It is real. Look." I showed her my phone with the bank app. The 6.5 million were still there. Real, tangible. Ours. She put a hand to her mouth. "I still can't believe it. After everything we went through." "It is over," I told her, hugging her. "All that hell is over." Our flight left at 11 o'clock sharp. When the plane took off and Detroit began to look smaller and smaller below, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. The city where I was born, where I had built my life, where I had raised my children, was moving away, and with it, all the pain. The flight to Madrid, with a layover in New York, lasted almost 15 hours. Teresa slept most of the time leaning on my shoulder. I looked out the window, thinking, planning, imagining our new life. I knew Robert and Monica would have already found the note. It was almost 2 in the afternoon in Detroit. Monica always got up around 10. She would have gone to the kitchen for breakfast. She would have seen the paper on the table, the keys, the penny. I imagined her face reading the first lines, the confusion, then the realization, and finally, the rage upon reaching the part about my new fortune. She probably would have run to our room. She would have found it empty. She would have called Robert at work, hysterical. They left. The old people left, and he says he has money. It has to be a lie. Robert would have rushed home. They would have looked for clues. They would have searched the room from top to bottom. They would find nothing, just the folded sheets, the clean room, and the silence. The idea made me smile. It wasn't a smile of joy. It was the cold smile of someone who had finally delivered checkmate. We landed in Madrid at 4 in the morning local time. Adolfo Suarez Madrid Barajas Airport was huge, modern, full of travelers from all over the world. Teresa looked at everything with big eyes, like a child on her first trip. We had traveled to Europe before, when we had money, but this was different, before we traveled as rich tourists. Now we traveled as refugees from our own family, starting a new life. We took a taxi to the apartment Mr. Vance had rented for us. It was in the Salamanca district, an elegant but not showy area. The building was classic Spanish architecture, with wrought iron balconies and an old wooden gate. The apartment was on the 3rd floor. 2 bedrooms, spacious living room, modern kitchen, a small balcony overlooking a tree-lined street. It was fully furnished, simple but comfortable, dignified. Teresa entered and stood in the center of the living room. She started to cry, but this time they weren't tears of pain. They were tears of relief, of liberation. "No one is going to humiliate us here," she whispered. "No one is going to call us nuisances." I hugged her. We stayed like that for a long time, standing in the middle of our new home, in a strange city, thousands of miles from everything we had known, and for the first time in months, we felt at home. The first days in Madrid were about adaptation. We registered our documents at the U.S. Embassy. We opened local bank accounts. We bought new clothes, something we hadn't done in almost a year. Teresa bought 3 beautiful dresses that made her look 10 years younger. I bought simple but well-made suits. We walked through Retiro Park every morning. We had churros with chocolate for breakfast in small cafes. We went to the Prado Museum to see art. Teresa, who had always wanted to study art history but never had time, spent hours looking at the paintings of Velázquez and Goya. One afternoon, we were sitting on a park bench when my phone rang. It was a number from the U.S., Robert's. Teresa looked at me with big eyes. "Are you going to answer?" I thought about it for a moment. Then I rejected the call. 2 minutes later, it rang again. I rejected it again. Then a text message arrived. "Dad, please answer. We need to talk." Then another. "I don't understand why you left like that. Monica is very upset." And another one. "If you really won money, we can fix things. We can start over." I read the messages aloud to Teresa. She shook her head. "Now they want to fix things. When we were poor, we were worth nothing. Now that they know you have money, suddenly we are important." She was right. I blocked Robert's number. Then I blocked Monica's too, anticipating she would try to call. But the calls continued, from unknown numbers, from Robert's friends' phones, once even from the number of Anna, my daughter. That call I did answer. "Dad!" Anna's voice sounded worried. "Where are you? Robert called me saying you disappeared, that you left a strange note. Are you okay?" "We are perfectly fine, sweetheart," I told her calmly. "In fact, we are better than ever." "But where are you? Robert says that Monica says you won the lottery. Is it true?" "Robert asked you to call me to ask that." There was an uncomfortable silence. "He is worried about you." "Anna, your brother is not worried about us. He is worried about the money. We spent 3 months living in his house. 3 months where his wife humiliated us every day. 3 months where he treated us like nuisances. You never saw it because you were in Denver. But believe me, it was hell. Dad, I didn't know. Robert never told me. Of course he didn't tell you, because he knew it was wrong. But he allowed it. He enjoyed it even. And now that he knows I have money again, suddenly he wants to fix things." Anna went silent. Then she sighed. "What do you want me to tell him?" "Tell him your mother and I are fine, that we are in a safe place, that we are happy, and that we don't need anything from him, neither his money nor his fake concern." "And me? Can I know where you are?" I thought about it. Anna had never treated us badly. She had never asked for money she couldn't pay back. She was a good daughter, but she was also Robert's sister, and I knew he would pressure her for information. "Not yet, sweetheart. When we are fully settled, we will let you know. But for now, we need time. We need to heal." "I understand," she said with a sad voice. "I love you, Dad. You and Mom. I hope you know that. We know, and we love you too." I hung up. Teresa looked at me with approval. "You did good. Anna's different. But it isn't time yet." Weeks passed. Madrid became our refuge. We made friends in the neighborhood. Mr. Garcia, owner of the bakery on the corner, who saved us the best muffins every morning. Mrs. Pilar, our neighbor on the second floor, who invited us for tea and told us stories of Madrid. They were people who knew us as Arthur and Teresa, 2 retired Americans enjoying life. They knew nothing of bankrupt companies, of cruel children, of past humiliations. One day, 2 months after arriving in Madrid, we were having breakfast on our balcony when I received an email. It was from Mr. Vance in Detroit. "Dear Mr. Miller, I inform you that your son Robert has attempted to initiate a lawsuit to claim part of your lottery winnings. arguing family abandonment and economic necessity. The lawsuit was rejected immediately upon presenting the irrevocable trust and the audio recordings I discreetly took during our first meeting, where you explained the conditions of mistreatment. Furthermore, Robert has had serious financial problems. Apparently, he expected you to leave him money as an inheritance and had taken out large loans anticipating that. Now he is in debt. Thought you would want to know. Regards, Ernest Vance. I read the email aloud to Teresa. She shook her head. Robert took loans thinking he would inherit money. He never changed, always counting on other people's money. Mr. Vance is very good, I said. He recorded our conversation to protect us. He knew Robert might try something like that. Do you feel anything? Teresa asked, looking at me. Knowing your son is in trouble. I thought about it honestly. I searched inside myself for some trace of paternal concern, of desire to help, but I found nothing. No, I replied, finally. I feel nothing. It is like reading about a stranger. Me neither, Teresa admitted, and it surprises me not to feel guilty about feeling nothing. There is nothing to feel guilty about, I told her. We didn't abandon them. They abandoned us first. Emotionally, spiritually, they treated us like disposable objects. We just left physically. More months passed. Autumn arrived in Madrid with its golden leaves and cool afternoons. We celebrated our 45th wedding anniversary in a small restaurant. We toasted with Spanish wine and laughed, remembering our first years together, when we were young and poor but happy. You know what is ironic? Teresa said that night. When we had all the money in the world, we were miserable in the end. Now, with less money, but more peace, we are happier than ever. She was right. Yes, we had millions. But we lived modestly. The rented apartment, simple meals, walks in the park, no ostentatious luxuries, no need to impress anyone. Just the two of us, enjoying every day. One afternoon in December, almost 6 months after arriving in Madrid, I received another call from Anna. This time I did answer. Dad, she said with a tired voice, I just wanted you to know that Robert and Monica are getting divorced. Really? I couldn't avoid a certain satisfaction. Yes. Apparently Monica got tired of the financial problems. She found someone else, someone with money. Robert is destroyed. He lost his house. He had to file for bankruptcy. He is living in a small apartment, alone. She waited for my reaction. Maybe she expected me to say we would return to help him. That blood was more important than pride. But I had learned something in these months. Family is not defined by blood. It is defined by respect, by genuine love, by loyalty. Anna, I said softly, I'm sorry your brother is going through that, but it is not my responsibility to save him. He made his decisions. Now he has to live with the consequences. I know, she sighed. I just thought you would want to know. Dad, can I ask you something? Of course. Are you happy? The question took me by surprise. Yes, sweetheart. Your mother and I are very happy. I'm glad, she said, and sounded genuine. That is all I wanted to know. I love you. And when you are ready, I would love to visit you, wherever you are. Soon, I promised. Soon we will tell you where we are, and we would love for you to come with your family. After hanging up, Teresa asked me, will you tell her where we are? Eventually. Anna deserves it. But not yet. We still need more time just for us. Christmas passed. New Year's passed. Madrid filled with lights and celebrations. Teresa and I walked down the main avenue, seeing the decorated windows. We ate grapes at midnight in the main square, surrounded by thousands of strangers who became our temporary family, for a night. In January, a year after losing everything, I sat on the balcony of our apartment in Madrid, with a cup of coffee. The morning sun warmed my face. Below, the city woke up with its usual sounds, cars, conversations, the bell of a nearby church. Teresa came out to the balcony and sat beside me. "What are you thinking about?" "That life is strange," I replied. A year ago, we were sleeping in the smallest room of Robert's house, listening to his wife call us nuisances. Today we are here, free, in peace, happy. "Do you miss home?" she asked. I miss what it represented. My years of youth, the time when I was building the company, the first years of our marriage. But I don't miss what it became in the end. I don't miss the betrayal. Teresa nodded. Me neither. Here, no one knows us as the old folks who lost everything. We are just Arthur and Teresa, and I like that. "Do you know what is the best part of all this?" I said, taking her hand. "What?" "That we learned the most important lesson. That dignity cannot be bought, but it cannot be begged for either, and that sometimes the sweetest revenge is not destroying those who hurt you. It is simply being happy without them." Teresa smiled, that smile that had made me fall in love over 40 years ago. "Let's toast to that," she said, raising her coffee cup. We clinked cups. "To dignity," I said. "To freedom," she added. "To starting over. To us." We stayed there on that balcony in Madrid, two old Americans who had lost everything and recovered everything, not in material possessions, but in something much more valuable. Inner peace. And as the sun rose over the rooftops, I knew with absolute certainty that we had won, not because we had money again, but because we had regained our dignity, and that no ungrateful sun could ever take away from us. 3 years have passed since that morning we left Detroit. 3 years since we disappeared from Robert and Monica's lives, leaving only a note and a penny. 3 years that have been the best of our lives. Teresa and I still live in Madrid, although now in an apartment we bought, nothing flashy. 2 bedrooms in a nice neighborhood, with a bigger balcony where we grow plants and have coffee every morning. The lottery money we invested wisely this time. No risky businesses, no trusting strangers with golden promises, just conservative investments that allow us to live with dignity without working. Teresa fulfilled her dream of studying art history. She enrolled in senior courses at the university. Now she spends afternoons in libraries and museums, happy as I had never seen her. She has friends with whom she drinks tea and discusses art. She laughs more, walks taller. The years of humiliation disappeared from her face. I dedicated myself to something I never had time to do when I had the company. Writing. I am writing my memoirs, not to publish them necessarily, but to process everything lived, to understand how a man can build an empire, lose everything, be betrayed by his own blood, and finally find peace. The pages pile up, the story tells itself. Anna visited us 6 months ago. We gave her our address after 2 years of silence. She arrived with her husband and her 2 daughters, now teenagers. We cried hugging at the airport. It was like recovering the only part of my family worth keeping. During her visit, one afternoon while the girls were with Teresa in the park, Anna and I had coffee in a small cafe near home. Finally, we talked about Robert. "Do you know how he is?" she asked me carefully. "I haven't asked," I replied honestly, "and I'm not interested in knowing." "Bad dad? Very bad?" Anna lowered her gaze. "After the divorce, he lost everything. Monica kept the little they had. He had to declare bankruptcy. He lost his job. Now he lives in a horrible apartment on the outskirts of Detroit. He works as a salesman in an auto parts store. Ironic. Right, selling the same parts you used to manufacture. I waited to feel something. Compassion, maybe. Satisfaction at poetic justice. But I only felt empty. "And," I asked, "he asked me to ask you if you could help him. He says he is sorry, that he was blinded by Monica, that if he could turn back time—" "Anna," I interrupted her gently, "your brother is not sorry. He is broke. If I won the lottery tomorrow, he would too. He would be the same cruel man again. True repentance doesn't come when you lose everything. It comes when you have everything and decide to change anyway. I know, she sighed. Deep down, I know, but he is still my brother. And he is still my son, I said, biologically. But a long time ago he ceased to be my family in the real sense of the word. Family is built with love, respect, loyalty, not with shared DNA. Anna nodded sadly. Will you never forgive him? Forgiving doesn't mean forgetting sweetheart, and it doesn't mean reconciling. I have forgiven Robert, in my heart. I carry no grudge. I don't wish for his destruction, but I don't wish to have him in my life either. There are wounds that, when they heal, leave permanent scars, and those scars remind you that you must keep your distance from what hurt you. Anna cried a little. I hugged her. You aren't like him, I told her. You have your mother's heart. That is why you are here. That is why we want you in our lives. Before leaving, Anna gave me a letter. Robert asked me to give you this. You don't have to read it if you don't want to, but he asked me to at least deliver it. The letter sat on my desk for a week, looking at me, waiting. Finally, one night when Teresa was sleeping, I opened it. The handwriting was Robert's, less elegant than before, shaky even. Dad, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know what Monica and I did to you was unforgivable. When I think about those months where you lived in my house, where I treated you like a nuisance, where I allowed her to humiliate you and Mom, I want to throw up. I have no excuses. I could blame Monica, but it would be a lie. I participated. I laughed. I enjoyed feeling superior to the man who gave me everything. I was resentful of you, Dad. I always was. Resentful because I was never as good as you. Because you gave me everything. But I knew it was because you had worked for it, and I hadn't. Resentful because every time you looked at me, I saw disappointment in your eyes. When you lost everything, a dark part of me was happy. Finally, you were vulnerable. Finally, you were down, where I had always felt compared to you. But now I understand. You weren't up there because of the money. You were up there because of your character, because of your dignity, because of your ability to get up every time you fell. I don't have that strength. I lost everything, and I crumbled. I don't know how to get up. I still don't know. I am not asking for money. I am not asking you to come back. I just ask you to know that I regret every moment of pain I caused you, and that if I could change anything, I would change having become the man who disappointed the best father anyone could have. I'm sorry, Dad. I'm very sorry. Robert. I read the letter twice. Then I folded it carefully and put it in a drawer of my desk. I didn't tear it up. I didn't throw it away. But I didn't answer either, because some apologies come too late. Not because forgiveness is impossible, but because the damage was so deep that rebuilding is simply something you no longer want to do. Teresa found me at the desk, staring into space. Did you read it? She asked. Yes. And nothing. He's sorry, maybe genuinely, but that changes nothing. Teresa sat beside me. You know what is sad, that Robert could have had all this. She pointed to our cozy apartment, our quiet lives. He could have been part of our new life. He could have grown old with us, shared these experiences, but he chose money over love, and when the money was gone, he was left alone. That was his choice, I said, and now he has to live with it. Months kept passing. We celebrated our 48th wedding anniversary. Anna visited us again, this time with better news. She was pregnant with her third child. We would be grandparents again, but this time of a grandchild we would meet with love, not obligation. One spring afternoon, Teresa and I were in the park feeding the ducks when my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. Normally I ignored them, but something made me answer. Mr. Arthur Miller, asked a formal voice. Yes. Who is this? I am the public notary, calling from Detroit. I'm sorry to inform you that your son, Robert Miller, passed away 3 days ago. The world stopped. Teresa looked at me with alarm, seeing my expression. How was all I could say. A heart attack. Apparently, he had developed heart problems due to stress and didn't get proper care. They found him in his apartment. His sister Anna gave me your number. She is arranging funeral matters. I hung up slowly. Teresa took my hand. What happened? Robert died, I said. The words sounded unreal. Teresa gasped. We sat on a park bench in silence for a long time. The ducks kept swimming. People kept walking. The world kept turning. But something fundamental had changed. My son had died, and I hadn't been there. Do you want to go to the funeral? Teresa asked softly. I thought about it for a long time. No, I said finally. It wouldn't do any good. Not for him, not for me. Are you sure? Robert died to me 3 years ago, Teresa, when he chose to humiliate us instead of loving us. The man who passed away 3 days ago was a stranger who shared my last name. Nothing more. But that night, alone in my study while Teresa slept, I cried. Not for the Robert of the last few years, but for the boy he had been, for the baby I held in my arms the night he was born, for the 6-year-old boy who hugged me and said, "When I grow up, I want to be like you, Dad," for the teenager who still asked for advice before money corrupted him. I cried for the son I could have had if I had been a better father, if I had found the right balance between giving him everything and teaching him to value it. I cried for the conversations we would never have, for the forgiveness I would never offer face to face. But when I finished crying, I dried my tears, and I moved on. Because that is what you do when you have lived so much. You learn that life goes on. That pain is temporary. That guilt is useless. Anna called me after the funeral. It was very small, Dad, she told me with a broken voice. Almost no one went. Some co-workers. Me and my family. Monica didn't even show up. That was the ending he built, I said softly. Not with malice, but with his choices. Do you regret anything? She asked. There was pain in her voice, maybe even a touch of accusation. I regret many things, sweetheart. Giving him so much without teaching him to earn it. Not being tougher when I should have been. Not showing him that character is worth more than money. But I don't regret leaving when I did. Because those last 3 years with your mother have been the happiest of my life. And if I had stayed, Robert would have destroyed us all. Anna didn't answer for a long moment. Then she whispered, I love you, Dad, and I understand why you did what you did. I love you too, sweetheart. Today, as I write this in my study in Madrid, I am 71 years old. Teresa is 74. We are old, yes, but we are happy old people, dignified, free. Sometimes I think about that night 4 years ago, when I checked the lottery ticket in Robert's backyard, that moment that changed everything. And I wonder, what would have happened if I hadn't won? Would we have found another way to escape, or would we have died slowly in that small room? Crushed by humiliation, I don't know. And it doesn't matter anymore because we won, and we used that money not just to survive, but to recover the most important thing, our dignity. People sometimes ask me if I hate Robert, if I carry a grudge, and my answer is always the same. No, I don't hate him. I don't even blame him completely. He was a product of my mistakes as a father as much as his own choices. But I don't miss him either, because the son I loved died long before his heart stopped beating. He died the day he chose cruelty over compassion, the day he decided that money was worth more than love. Teresa enters my study with 2 cups of tea. Still writing? She asks with a smile. Almost finished, I reply. Is it therapeutic? Very. She sits beside me. We look out the window together. The sun sets over Madrid, painting the sky orange and purple. It is beautiful, simple, perfect. You know what I learned from all this, I tell her. What? That life takes from you and gives to you. It breaks you and rebuilds you. It destroys you and resurrects you. And in the end, the only thing that really matters is not how much money you had or lost. It is who you lived it with and how you kept your dignity in the process. Teresa rests her head on my shoulder. You were very brave, Arthur, for leaving, for starting over, for not giving up. I wasn't brave, I correct. I was just tired of being humiliated. Sometimes bravery is just tiredness in disguise. We laugh. That light laughter of two old people who have seen too much lost, but who still find reasons to smile. If I could speak to people going through something similar, I would say this. Family isn't always sacred. Sometimes the most toxic people share your blood, and it is okay to walk away. It is okay to protect yourself. It is okay to choose your peace over family obligation. Dignity cannot be bought, but it cannot be begged for either. If you have to beg for basic respect, you aren't in the right place. It is never too late to start over. Teresa and I were almost 70 when we started our new life, and they have been the best years. Money comes and goes. I lost everything. I got it back. I could lose it again tomorrow, but as long as I have my dignity and the people who genuinely love me, I will be rich. And finally, the best revenge against those who humiliate you is not destroying them. It is being happy without them. It is building a life so full that their absence is irrelevant. I close my notebook. The story is complete. I won't publish it. I don't need the world to know what we went through. But I wrote it, and by writing it, I close that chapter forever. Teresa and I go out for a walk. It is our routine every night. We walk through the streets of Madrid holding hands. Two old Americans who found their home thousands of miles from where they were born. We pass a lottery shop. Teresa points to the sign. Do you want to buy a ticket? I laugh. No, I already had my stroke of luck. I don't need another. What if you won again? Then I would donate it all, because I already have everything I need. She smiles, that smile that made me fall in love over 40 years ago, and we walk home, towards our small apartment, towards our simple and perfect life. Because in the end, you don't need millions to be rich. You just need dignity, love, and the courage to walk away from those who value neither. Thank you for listening to this story. If you can take anything from it, let it be this. Never let anyone, not even family, take away your dignity. And remember that, always, always, you can start over. No, it doesn't matter the age. It doesn't matter how much you have lost. As long as you breathe, you have the opportunity to build something better. I wish you peace. I wish you dignity. And I wish you the courage to know when it's time to leave. God bless you.